Are we ready? There's some persons with us this afternoon that were not with us this morning. Yes? Yes. We missed you. Should I do a review of our discussion this morning?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. This morning, this is the same introductory slide. The background is, because you'll see some of the images here that are directed for an audience in China, because this was part 2
Okay, let me know if you do.
of a, well, workshop number 2 of a series of workshops in Kunming. The first one was the art of meditation, because in China there's a growing interest in meditation. So knowing that that's something they're interested in, we created a 4-part workshop on what is meditation, including all kinds of meditation, and we experimented with and demonstrated, and then did mantra meditation and made a comparison subjectively, and there's some research on mantra meditation that shows its special effectiveness. And many people began chanting japa as a result of it. And then we thought, okay, what's next? And what's next is this, because we saw in the morning session there's statistics that show negative emotion or specific clinical depression is, the chart goes like this. It's really increasing. And one of the reasons that it's increasing was a result of, was demonstrated through a discussion that we had upstairs with this one American fellow whose profession is, I forget exactly how he described it, but in the field of psychotherapy dealing with youth, young adults from 11 to 17. And there's this enormous spike in clinical depression that's accelerated by advancements of technology. So we covered some of that this morning. What is negative emotion? In the secular world, what do people who deal with it advise how to address negative emotion, and specifically without the purity that comes from a pure heart, which comes from mantra meditation, Chaita Darpana Marjanam, that it's not going to be sustainable. So that's what we discussed this morning. What is negative emotion? Where does it arise from? Some of the prompts that trigger negative emotion. What happens when it's out of control? How to get on the other side of that negative emotion, specifically through mantra meditation. So now, there's a little funny thing it does at the beginning. Here's the 4-part workshop, and we discussed number 1. Now we're going to be discussing number 3, navigating through negative emotions, and it's going to be covering 4 keys. And one is the power of acceptance. We'll discuss each one of these a little bit, and then we're done with this afternoon's session. Power of goals, power of introspection, power of moving forward. So when people have a negative emotion, there are some general types of responses. Now, some of them get real extreme. There's a little video, a video camera inside a workplace. This man is at his workstation, this lady is at her little cubicle, and then there's somebody across the way. And this man is having an issue with his computer that's not responding. So he gets into this extreme emotional, temporary insanity position. This is real life. It wasn't staged. The workers are checking about what's going on with this guy. There he comes back with a sledgehammer. We don't know if the man kept his job or not. But for sure his computer was finished. And the monitor. So that's temporary insanity response. And then there's another response, and it's a repression. And when repression of that negative emotion builds up, it can lead to depression. Repression can lead to depression, and it can lead to then taking it out on other people, like bullies. So behind the bully, there's probably some negative emotion that he is venting on his shorter, whoever it is, brother or kid. We saw this image this morning. This is self-sabotage image. So it can lead to, negative emotion can lead to very severe cases of self-harm. So this is a little discussion exercise, but just to break the ice and get our creative minds thinking a little bit. Any suggestions? Not just negative emotions, but in general, how would you advise that we or you process emotions? Emotions arise, it's just natural for embodied souls. We have bodies and minds, and we feel something, and there's an emotion. How do we process emotions? Yeah.
Expressing it to someone.
Expressing it to someone. Good. Good.
Awareness. To be aware that you are getting angry, just to even know that you are aware of it.
You didn't attend their first class, but that was one of the main messages from the morning class. We could have had you give the morning class. When you become aware of the emotion, what happens next? Generally speaking, the intelligence begins to give guidance to how you address yourself to that emotion. There's a detachment that gives rise to intelligence that helps you understand how to address the emotion. It starts with, instead of just being carried away by it, being aware of it. And then being a little detached. And then intelligence can act. Otherwise intelligence gets carried away. We discussed that this morning too, from Bhagavad Gita. Being aware. Good.
that everything is temporary.
You attended the morning class? You weren't here. That was one of the lessons. But okay, maybe we'll have you all give the... Okay. Well, here's our 4 keys. Now, where do these 4 keys come from? These are people that it's their profession that help people deal with negative emotion. It's part of the training that counselors do to help people address negative emotion. So the first one is power of acceptance. The image over here is sunrise. And the dark of night is over. It's temporary when it's night, because after some time the sun's going to rise. So part of dealing with negative emotion is be patient. Sometimes there's an urgency addiction and you have to do something because you got this emotion. But if you're patient and you recognize the temporary nature of the emotion as what to speak of the cause of the emotion, then it makes it a little easier. It's not advised by those people in this professional field, don't deny the emotion. The expression, tuck it under the rug. Don't do that. That's unhealthy. It leads to an unhealthiness or quality of life. Resentment towards the situation that created that emotion is also unhealthy. That image, one of the images from this morning was the fellow in prison. And the negative emotion that you just get angry at the cause of that emotion or the circumstance keeps you in prison. Keeps you in that negative emotion space. You put yourself there, you don't have to. A little Prabhupada story. Prabhupada stories always make giving class nice. So, some of you have heard Peter Burwash speak. Some of you have not. Peter Burwash is an ardent admirer of Srila Prabhupada, and he met Prabhupada, had some exchanges with Prabhupada in Hawaii. During that period of time, the Hare Krishna movement was just getting underway. Peter Burwash at the time was a trainer of tennis teachers. He had a tennis teacher school. And he had something that most devotees at the time didn't have. He had some money. He had some independent wealth. So he tells the story of how he met Prabhupada and so on. And then at one point in time, he saw that the temple needed some money. So he donated $500, which at that time was a lot, especially during those days. But for the devotees, that was a substantial donation. And about a week after he gave the donation, the person he gave the donation to ran away with the money. Left the temple and stole his $500, or whatever else he stole also. And the way Peter tells the story is the next time Prabhupada came to visit the Hawaii temple, as he would do when Prabhupada would visit, he had the privilege of seeing Prabhupada in his room. So he had some discussion about some things and then told Prabhupada the story. That this unfortunate thing happened. He gave $500 and the guy he gave the money to ran away with his $500. And Prabhupada's reply was, that is not very good. And then he said, but you should not become angry with the, how does the phrase go?
You should not blame the instrument of your karma.
Yeah, okay, thank you. You should not blame the instrument of your karma. Thank you. Don't blame the instrument. Now, Peter's a devotee, and devotees don't have karma because they do devotional service. But Prabhupada was teaching him a lesson. Somehow this happened to you. Who knows what's back there? like we were discussed in the morning session. Some misfortune may be back there, and you don't know what that something is that's back there, but here is the situation where a minimization of your karma at least has come, and don't blame the instrument of that coming back to you. And obviously it made a big impression on Peter because I've heard him tell the story multiple times. So that's this one. Resentment towards situations that are the cause of a negative emotion, don't do that. Don't maintain that resentment. And then this image on the left is recognize its temporality. And here's a little image that's kind of funny. Ah, romance. I can't live without you. This is Chinese, right? 18 months later, I can't live with you. Takes and yeah. So, this is based on a statistic. It's not just a Chinese statistic, but the romance period of marriages is over at 18 months. And then whether people stick it out or not has to do whether they've understood something higher than romance to come together. There's a higher principle. Of course, if you're a cultured person, you understand from the get-go that there's something more than romance involved. So, commonly, people that coach or counsel people who have negative emotion compare that negative emotion to be like bad weather. When there's bad weather, we go to work. Is there bad weather in Grand Rapids sometimes?
Yes.
Oh, some of you are wincing. And now, you may not go to work, but your kids are really happy to go to school when there's bad weather. Anyway, we do our duties despite the external circumstance. So similarly, when there's bad emotional weather or mental weather, we continue, we tolerate tongue statiksha samparita. There's a Bhagavad Gita verse that indicates like this. 2:14. You can't see the whole tree, but there's the winter and the summer season for the tree. So you know the verse. I'll read the verse. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception. O sign of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them. Tongue satiksha, svabharata. Matra sparshas. It's just sense perception. Listen to Prabhupada recordings and you hear him say, just like this fan. In the fan, it's nice when it's summer, and when it's winter, turn the fan off. So what's pleasing one time is displeasing another time. So it's just sense perception, pleasing, not pleasing. The fan is neither pleasing nor not pleasing. It's displeasing. It's sense perception. Now comes this key of acceptance. Poor fellow, look at that guy. It kind of looks like a beret, but it's an ice pack. Okay. If, for example, we can't go for a nice picnic arranged with friends due to the flu, woo, woo, woo. Resentment of reality is more hurtful than the reality itself. It stays with you longer than the flu. Reluctance to accept in itself causes negative emotions, and even worse, physical sickness. So this is on the key of acceptance. There are circumstances outside of ourselves that we can't do anything about. And one of the things to make the situation worse is to get into a negative space about the situation that you can't do anything about it. It doesn't help the situation, it makes your inner experience worse. People that I know that do counseling as a profession, they recommend a book by Viktor Frankl that I'm invited sometimes to speak in corporate places about stress management. Not that people in the workplace get stressed, but so one of the references I make is to this book by Viktor Frankl. And it's called Man's Search for Meaning. And it's been reprinted about 22 times or something like that. 21 times, some number of times. And there's a reason why. It's really skinny. And it's really meaningful. And it was written in 1946 or thereabouts by a man who was a Jewish prisoner in a Nazi concentration camp, and he survived. And natural, when you're in a circumstance that's outside of your control, is why? Why is this happening to me? God, people can become atheists because it's not fair, he's a good man, and why are the Jewish people as a race being treated this way, and so on. And he tells the story of what his experience was like. And he tells how it was that he survived. And one of the things that he writes is that what man needs, you can look it up in Google, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, you'll find lots of quotes, really nice ones. It's made the book popular and resell. What man needs is not release from circumstances that are outside of his control at any cost. But what man needs is to understand there's a basic freedom that no circumstance can take from him. And that is a man's choice how he's going to respond to the circumstance. We have that freedom that no one can take. And there's many other nice things. So, circumstances that are outside, hey, in Grand Rapids it gets cold in the winter. It's not going to change. And it gets a little warm in the summer, that's nice too. But you can't change it by not liking it and having a negative emotion about it. You can change how you respond to it. You can get up and move, or you can dress more warmly, or you can do other things. You can choose how you respond to circumstances outside of your control, rather than getting sucked into a negative emotion about something. Here's Mother Teresa's statement, it's nice. Some people come in our life as blessings, some come in your life as lessons. And just accept the lessons, personalities. I have some people in my life, they're definitely lessons. And that's a kind of blessing too. And it's not always easy to see them as blessings, but it's certainly easy to see them as lessons. Some people think this thing of acceptance, that's disempowering. They want their kids to be like a supergirl or guy and fight against all odds and win. Acceptance can be seen as cowardice or weak response, resigning to fate as if defeated. However, acceptance allows us to move forward rather than dwell on the past. It is what it is. This is common teaching that comes in stress management. You know, life throws rocks at you. And it hurts. That's how it starts. And then you can choose how you respond. You pick up the rock, toss it in the air a few times, consider what are some options for you, and then do something that gives you energy and strength to move on. That's what stress management folks advise. You know, that the other one is life throws rocks at you, it hurts, and you start getting lost in this negative emotion about the rock and the person that threw the rock and the hurt. Don't dwell on the past, except life threw rocks at you, and it hurts. You don't deny the emotion. You don't deny the event. We're in a place of duality. This, Peter Burwash, someone stole the money. It doesn't make the event nice, or even the feeling about the event nice. But don't get caught up in the emotion of the event and dwell on it and all of that resentment and blame. Rather, this acceptance is empowering. Here's a nice little example. Everyone knows this now deceased person, but what misfortune. Looking at the external feature of his life. But by acceptance and moving forward, he became, very brilliant, in the estimation of some at least, personality. Celebrated personality, despite the physical limitation. Or from our scripture, Shukadeva Goswami, when he heard from the Brahmin messenger of Shamak Rishi that his son Shringi had cursed him to die, immediately there was acceptance. He was ready even before the messenger came. I'm going to get it. I did a bad thing, and whatever the Lord wants to do, then I accept. And sure enough, he accepted. But the acceptance resulted in, he went very swiftly back to Godhead. How would you like to get a messenger saying, in 7 days you're going to Krishna Loka? That would be a nice message. Or you're going to get the association of Shukadeva Goswami for 7 days and nights. That would be pretty nice. But the message was you're going to die by the bite of a snake. But there was acceptance. But within that, the saying, within every cloud there's a silver lining, that kind of thing. Within the misfortune, somewhere in that misfortune there's some opportunity, some good fortune. That's how, not just close your eyes and pretend there's no misfortune kind of a person, but seeing how the misfortune, behind the misfortune we discussed this morning, is the hand of Krishna somehow. I may not understand. We'll see a nice image about that. I may not understand how Krishna's hand is working in the situation, but in course of time I'll understand, by the mercy of Krishna. The following slide comes from Adi Purusha. Some of you may know that person. He's a teacher of Bhakti Shastri and Bhakti Vaibhav. He's an excellent teacher. And he was about some months ago, about 4 months ago, he was visiting in Potomac, and he was for a whole week giving a seminar on what you're about to see. So I really like what he was teaching and sharing it with you now, on the point of acceptance. What we don't accept, when we don't accept an undesired event, it becomes anger. When we accept it, it becomes tolerance. When we don't accept uncertainty, it becomes fear. When we accept it, it becomes adventure. Remember that pyramid from the morning? When we don't accept others' bad behavior towards us, it becomes hatred. When we accept it, it becomes. When we don't accept others' success, it becomes jealousy. When we accept, it becomes inspiration. Acceptance is the key to handling life well. And the punchline for Bhagavad Gita values, which we were discussing in the morning classes, in the Bhagavad Gita is known as surrender. So he gave a whole week seminar on Bhagavad Gita illustrating this principle of acceptance. So by the end of a week everyone got it. Acceptance, I accept, I accept. And it's a key to getting on the other side of negative emotion. So now we're going to do a little interactive session on what is success. Because sometimes we have this idea of what is success and what is failure. So the way that this exercise is going to work is going to have two groups. And one group is going to discuss what is success in today's world, and that group will also discuss how many in your group consider yourself successful based on what is success in today's world. And the other group is in today's world what is considered failure and how many consider themselves failures. You'll find it an interesting discussion, I'm sure. When we did it in China, they really got into it. So how are we going to divide? Just right in the middle here? It's kind of... You're right in the middle. You can go any way you want. And then, so the ladies like to sit with the ladies. So you sit over here with the men. And then, so to get in a little circle or however you want to do it, we're going to take 5-7 minutes, and you're going to discuss what is success, what is considered, not what you as a Hare Krishna devotee, but in the world today, what is considered success, and how many of you consider yourselves to be successful. And all of you are going to consider, in the world today, what's a failure? In the world today, what do people consider to be a failure? And are you a failure based upon that criterion of the world today, not the Hare Krishna standard? Success and failure. Got it? Yes. On your mark. Get set. Go.
Money recognition power. I'm considered okay, you want to say like we want to discuss success in today's world. So I'm considering having money recognition power is success.
One very important thing. Somebody be the note taker and can report back to the group. Okay. Please, one person take that function.
So, anybody wants to start his points as to what is success? And then we can discuss, agree on something, and then we can.
What is considered success in today's world?
Yeah, $3 million. 401k. So you have a lot of money, right?
Famous.
Status and wealth.
Like no charisma.
Money, power, fame.
Doesn't have
power recognition.
Not having good health. Not good health. Green card. Green card. Those who don't have.
I'm very underperformed.
Stable family.
Lack of function.
It was famous.
Not having famous.
Powerful, I guess. Strong.
Having control. That's what you
Not
have.
able to give good things to
Achieving your goals is considered
as a
success.
parent.
Achieving goals.
The other way around, it's not successful. Is parents feel.
Being happy and being successful is very good.
Okay, so we can ability Normally consider themselves successful.
So I am part of this group. I am a symbolic of their technically going there. Moving from failure to failure, success according to me current mode, because everybody is not successful. Only one of the people are successful. So moving from one failure to another failure with same enthusiasm. The first part I read that according to
Normally consider themselves one of the things successful. So success is relative.
They consider themselves successful.
Is this saying very important that success is
Second question is how many people
I've heard it all, and you got it covered. So.
success is an opinion.
Got all the experience. Whatever being written should be discussed with the group.
In today's world, success is termed as monetary success, physical presence, and higher contacts like that on the human side.
Famous.
okay, now it's repeating.
I think we'll have the
Can you repeat that all for everyone will give it? Not well educated, financial needs, not influential, not good health, underperforming, lack of beauty, lack of confidence.
Stress is on today's world.
It's not successful, not having kids, not able to control our emotion, and not being cool. The last thing we asked,
It's a very
I'm going to ask more about it.
depends on the system you're running.
It's
trying to see validation.
Yeah, please move on to the second part, now that you know what success and failure is. In worldly estimation, of course.
Based on what we write, everybody.
whatever it is.
Partial failure is partial failure will have.
So millionaire wants to become millionaire. People who want to become millionaire.
And also
sometimes everybody has
So I think that will be
something if I do this.
So probably the question is, are we considering ourselves successful, right?
So how many
yeah, I mean in general, how many consider ourselves
Is there another question to that part that is being discussed? The second one?
no, we're just discussing the second one. Since I'm just saying it's a minor.
However you want to do it.
Socio-economic that you're right.
Yeah, that's a nice short way to do it.
I think what Maharaj is saying
No abstaining.
That's why
No, but overall, if we think that is a standard. It depends. If you don't have a Lamborghini, then you are not successful, means you are a failure.
Money,
But
status
I am
and wealth,
happy with the
recognition,
small car.
green card, stable family, successful marriage,
Everybody is decided their own
considering success is hard, success is relative, success is an opinion.
There is no standard criteria here. The poor man is a person who is
It looks like the second question is more difficult than the first question. Are we ready for a report from each group? I mean, the report can be we couldn't sort it out for the second one. Who is the reporter for the first group? Yes. Loud enough so everybody can hear.
Success, under success we have identified money, status and wealth, recognition, green card, stable family.
Green card.
Stable family that includes famous, having control.
Listen, listen, listen.
After green card again. So stable family, that is successful marriage as well. Famous, having control, achieving goals. Considering successful is hard. Success is relative. Success is an opinion. Almost everyone considers themselves as successful. It depends on the socio-economic group that we are moving.
Okay, so that's the consensus. It depends on the socio-economic group that you're moving in. That's a fair answer. Who's the reporter for... Okay.
Not well educated, financially weak, not influential.
Not?
Influential.
Influential, okay.
Not good health, underperforming, lack of beauty, lack of confidence, lack of good career, kids not successful, not having kids, not able to control one's emotions, not being cool.
I heard the laughter on that one. And then you had to explain it. Go ahead. And now, how many consider themselves in that category?
No consensus.
No consensus. Okay, so thank you for that effort. Little levity in the midst of everything. So remember what the key for overcoming negative emotion, this is the key of acceptance. And over on the left, this is a historical photograph of families in 100 years ago. Failure was just a bump in the road. It, was part of life. And in our modern time, this half of 21st century, failure is seen as the end of the road. People are labeled as failures. One of Donald Trump's favorite words. Of course, he's not being judgmental. He's just being absolute. Now here's an image for China people, but social pressure in China isn't so different. This is success. All you devotees that were in the first group of what's success. And just a little sharing, a cultural thing. If a couple do not have a child, it's a social no-no. Whether it can be a biological reason or any other kind of a reason, it's like it's a negative social pressure, big time. Social pressures and social status, which form conceptions around success or failure, inhibit the ability to accept our life condition and our emotions connected with that life condition. The social pressure. Now here's a verse from Lord Brahma, one of our very famous verses in the Hare Krishna movement when people have difficulty. It's quoted in Bhagavad Gita. Those of you that like to recite Sanskrit, let's recite it together. Tate nukampam susamichamano vajaneva kritam vipakam tadva namaste jiveyo mukte esayavak. Prabhupada's translation, or now? Yeah, because this is also found in Chaitanya Charitamrita. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Here's Prabhupada speaking on this verse. Purport Bhagavad Gita. A pure devotee is never disturbed in any circumstances, nor is he envious of anyone. Nor does a devotee become his enemy's enemy. He thinks, this person is acting as my enemy due to my own past misdeeds, so it is better to suffer than to protest. Did any of you ever studied Hamlet in school? Hamlet? You remember the line from Hamlet? Whether 'tis nobler to suffer the slings and arrows of misfortune. You know that line? So, don't protest. That's Hamlet's question, and here's Prabhupada's answer. Don't protest. Now, you may take some action besides being silent, but the action is not a, why did you do this to me? Kind of response. You know, the Dhruva, that was what Dhruva did. Now, by intervention of Narada, he got on the other side of that. But Narada was advising him, if you want Vishnu, you're not going to get to Vishnu by retaliation and get back mentality. You have to let go of that. Anyway, better to suffer than to protest. That's the acceptance of misfortune, specifically. Now, so that was acceptance. Now, power of goals. Right size our emotion. This is advice from counselors that are helping people address their negative emotion. Over here is the two extremes, and then someone deciding which one is me. Without a clear purpose or goal, our emotions tend to grow larger than they need to be. In the perspective of our life's goal, how important is this particular event or internal emotion that is triggering us? You know, this is the temporality of the emotion, like someone commented. And in the big picture of things, my life mission, or even something shorter than my life mission, my immediate mission, then some bad event and some negative emotion, you can easily get on the other side of that if you have a very clear goal. And here's an example. You're in a car taking somebody to the hospital, and some rude person cuts you off in the traffic. So, what are you going to do with that person cut you off in the middle of it? You're going to just keep going because you got to get to the hospital. You got somebody that needs to get to the hospital. You're not going to go mess around. You got to have a very clear purpose, objective, and goal. So then, there's short-term goals like that. There's mid-range goals like that, and there's the long-term goal like that, the goal of life. It's like rivers flowing downstream. The example is given. in commentary on Queen Kunti's prayers, that for a river to form, there's many obstacles along the way, like rocks and stuff, and the river just keeps flowing and flowing and flowing, because that's what rivers do. They go downstream, and then the obstacles in the way, they get moved over time because of the flow of the river going downstream. And then the obstacles become less important, less prominent, whatever it was in the way. Similarly, in our life, having goals, the short-term, mid-term, long-term, especially the long-term goal, the big picture of the life mission, then you can be very tolerant and overlook a bump in the road. But if you don't have a long-term goal, if you don't know the purpose of life, and if you haven't even asked the question, it's important. A lot of the counseling that I do with young people, like, some of your children, or those of others, their children, because I'm not mom and dad, they come to me with stuff. It happens a lot. I mean, not all the time, but a lot. And so one of the questions, they blah, 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 blah. So whatever the blah is, one of the questions that I want to get them to think about is, what's really important to you? Because if they start thinking about what's really important to them, that thing that's irritating them, whatever it is, the emotion that's, the teenage emotion thing that's got a hold of them, it kind of like fades in importance, unless they've not asked what's important to them. And when they start asking the question, what's important, and that gets attention, and you give resources that can help support what's important to them, it's almost like a child with something you want to take away from the child. Those are looking at those with small children. You can't just take something away from the child. They just rant and scream, and you have to give them something else. And when you give them something else, they forget that other something. I've seen, qualified moms do it right, and unqualified moms do it wrong. The child screams and they just yell at the kid, or just ignore the kid and let him scream. But give better engagement. So what's really important to you? I haven't really thought about it. Okay. Well, let's go down that path a little bit. What's really, you have to ask it in different ways. Anyway, it's having a goal. It helps overcome negative emotion. The reverse or converse is, you don't have a goal, negative emotion can take a disproportionate place in your mind. You get lost in the temporary, and it becomes, they get so big, and it's not really so big. And Queen Kunti's prayers are like that. Let my mind, like the Ganges, flows inexorably toward the sea, let my mind flow only to you. So, little exercise time. We don't have to have any sharing on this, but just along the principle, what are some of the things that you'd like to accomplish in this life? The exercise, when it's the time for your funeral, what would you like people to think of you as? Or you look back at the final stages of your life, and you look back and say something, rather than regret. Put that goal in front of you and work towards that goal. You can refine it and redefine it and recalibrate how you're reaching towards that goal. It doesn't have to be the long-term lifetime goal. It can be some intermediate goals. But let's say, going back to Godhead, that's a great goal. Being with Krishna in loving service to Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan eternally. And And something in this lifetime will help you get there. What's that? Huh? Well, I'm requesting that you give it some thought and then write it down. Write it down. Write down your thoughts. This is for your benefit, not for the exam. Getting an A on your exam. Anyone need more time? Okay. Little sharing from our discussion upstairs. Not a lifetime goal, but let's say the next 2 to 3 year goal. Grand Rapids, Hare Krishna devotees. Children's education, adult education, reaching the hearts and the mind of the large American population here in Grand Rapids. Or not, that other than the non-resident Indian population in Grand Rapids. 3 goals, 2 or 3 year goal. So once there's a goal, this is a lesson that I've learned. When you're serious about a goal, almost immediately the intelligence starts to work how to achieve it. If you're not serious about the goal, the intelligence will stay asleep. It'll go to other things. But when you're serious about a goal, and then the intelligence will refine the procedures to reach the goal, you may have multiple prongs to reach the goal, all helping to reach the goal. And then being energized to reach a goal will help you overcome negative emotion. Now it doesn't mean there won't be obstacles in reaching the goal and then some negative emotions relating to the obstacles to reach the goal. But you'll still be fixed on accepting the reality of the obstacles and finding the ways and means to reach the goal depending upon Krishna, of course. Then there's the realities of life. That's our goal up there. And then there's reality of life down there. It's not always the way that we planned it. But we've learned to be accepting, and so be very flexible in what it takes to reach the goal. And here's our last slide in this section. Here's a magnification or microscopic photograph of embroidery, and it's a little chaotic. But you take away the magnification, and then you can see, there's a purpose to all of those crisscrosses of the threads. Similarly, we're in the midst of circumstances of life. We don't necessarily understand the bigger picture of what's Krishna's plan here for us, what's going on. We may not understand it, but those that are patient and have confidence in Krishna, Krishna may very well reveal. This, which looked like madness or, something other than sensible, turned out to be, very interesting. There's something very beautiful. Far better than we could have planned if we were the one planning things. So, nice concluding remark to goals. And part of that goal is recognizing Krishna's got a greater plan for all of us. If we're sincere, he'll help us get to him. So the power of introspection. The third key for overcoming negative emotion. Can we as human beings control well? Culture of today is fix everything by figuring out a plan to fix everything. It doesn't work the way that we feel it should be working, rather than accepting or tolerating. Now, it's something that I've learned about visiting India is lots of things don't work and people are just so tolerant. It doesn't make it work right either. It just, the train's 15 hours late and they just, what are you going to do about it? And, you know what I mean? Or Air India. Divorces are intended to fix disharmony in relationships. Not so likely. Fruits are imported or exported to fix deprivation during off-season months. Instant communication options to fix loneliness. Does it really? Something that really gets under my skin is I see people walking along the street of all different ages, not just young people anymore, and they're not talking to each other. They've got at least one phone going where they're texting, or a phone where they're speaking, or one of both. And there's no warmth of interaction between people that are together. They're not together. Anyway. Thermal comfort, so when there's discomfort of the climate. Personal TVs on airplanes to fix boredom. It's one of the things I like least about international travel. Domestic travel, they don't have those things. But international travel, I don't like it. So there's two things that I found that work, and neither of them are perfect. One of them is sleep. And the other is I just establish a project or two or three for myself, so it's just like I'm so immersed I don't even know what's going on around me. It helps, but it's very I find it very distracting. Or scientific and technological improvements have increased our conviction of being able to control our lives and destiny. But what does reality tell us? We're moving really fast and we don't have any brakes. We're subordinate to laws that are much greater than us. There's health conditions, accidents, career, war, and who's in control? What really can we? So this is helping to overcome negative emotions. Recognize that they're just a limit to what you can control, and what you can control is your consciousness. Or this Viktor Frankl idea is you can control how you choose to respond that which is out of your control. It's a freedom. You have a freedom that no one, even Krishna, will take from you. So the internal consciousness, that's your, what's his name? 7 Habits, Stephen Covey. there's interest of concern and interest of influence. What you have control over is your internal life. That's all. Okay, so now this is the last of the 4 keys, and we're done for the afternoon. Power of moving forward. And something that really helps moving forward is association with people who are moving forward. Good association. So may the devotees here in Grand Rapids become good association for one another, so it'll be attractive to other people who want good association. And here's a couple little videos that are just cute on this topic. Here's a firefly.
Heeft zo zijn voordelen. Ontdek alle voordelen van de bus en de tram op de lijn.be.
In Holland they're promoting public transportation. You want to see it again? It's cute.
Heeft zo zijn voordelen.
Okay, here's another one. Same company promoting public transportation. I like the cartoons. So, with good association, it's helpful to not obsess about the problem and the emotion connected to the problem. There's this Vaisheshika Prabhu expression. Maybe you've heard this one. Where attention goes, energy flows, so don't give attention to the problem or the emotion. Don't keep giving negative energy to the negative emotion, because the negative emotion will simply grow. What do you give attention to? You give attention to what's next. Making progress, making forward steps. Make small steps that are doable and maintain it every day. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's saying that I like, and I've repeated probably 100 times. Progress is a series of small steps in the right direction. It's good to know what the right direction is. Not just get in your little sports car and go for a ride. But where are you going? What's the goal? In your life, I asked you to write down what are some things you'd like to achieve. The more that the goal is clear, little steps towards that goal, you can feel you're making progress rather than feeling disempowered and trapped by the circumstances that you have no control over, whatever that might be. your mother-in-law, or whatever it might be. I see people smiling. Incremental steps to trust yourself and to trust others. Incremental steps in doing something positive for yourself. Incremental steps in applying mantra meditation to your life. Don't make promises to improve that you can't keep. It'll only exacerbate feelings of failure. Now this we shared in China, but it's overcoming negative emotion. And wisdom literature, Bhagavad Gita, reading it regularly, that is also very helpful. Count your blessings. Think about all the care and elements of joy in your life. Write a personal letter to Krishna. We didn't put Krishna, we didn't put that word in China. Or to that which is the source of all things for you, thanking him or her for those wonderful things. Think about the sun, beautiful nature, your breath, etc., etc. This is count your blessings, overcoming negative emotion. By chanting Krishna's holy name, one cleanses all the dust from the mirror of one's consciousness. And our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, is certainly one of the blessings in our life, and he lived his life filled with blessings and liberally bestowed to anyone, everyone. Please take. So he faced many challenges and difficulties and obstacles, etc. But his mood of service to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu carried him to destinations he said himself, I had no expectation, no idea at all. So then we ended our little session in China with Kirtan, the Hare Krishna mantra, and ask for questions. So it's now 6:24. We'll take some time for some discussion, and then I brought some Mahaprasadam cookies to distribute. We'll invite the kids to come when we get to that position. So comments, questions, discussion.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Right here, right here.
Okay, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Sometimes you have to analyze the problem, like whatever it is.
Yes.
And then you have to react to the problem, develop a strategy and everything.
Yes.
But if the problem comes, you are like, hey, I don't want to...
No. That's not what's being recommended.
I know. But
Don't stick your head in the sand. That's not being advocated.
So if it is a very, very negative problem, like how do you control yourself?
Well, first of all, we've been here. I just repeat. The situation is what it is. And you accept the situation is what it is. So that is, avoid just simply stimulus response. Just reacting to the situation that is. But so there's many steps. Do I have a correct read of the situation? That was one of the elements that we went over. And let me consider, so that life throws rocks at you, it hurts. You toss the rock up in the air a number of times. Go into this pause space, mode of goodness space, reflection space. It can happen quickly. It doesn't have to take days or weeks on end. It can be just a space that you go to. Once you become practiced at it, it becomes second nature. You'll do it anyways without even deliberately going into the reflective space. Go into the mode of goodness and consider, do I have a correct understanding of the situation? Maybe I need to get more clarity on the situation and my read of the situation. So what are some ways that I could do that? You just begin, consider. And some things, there can be some actions. I may consider, as you said, a strategy, some action plan. And some things, maybe I just need to be patient and let it pass. And some things, I may need to just engage myself in positive energy dynamic of something that's really wholesome, I really like to do. I have a lot of clarity in that and do some of that. Well, the strategy is slowly percolating and evolving, and so it depends on the circumstance. But for starters, there's the do not and the do. Do not just get in a reactionary mode. That's, your intelligence isn't at its peak in that situation.
Sometimes even with a clear understanding, if you are accepting that, it would cause you more suffering.
No, well, give an example. Let's say I'm driving my car, and here comes a car heading at me. Now, I don't just say, well, okay, I'm accepting the cars, so I have to do something. But your intelligence will be sharper if you're in that reflective rather than reactive space. Now, it doesn't have to happen, as I said. It can be very quick. If you're experienced at it, if you have practice at it, you go into reflective space and you may not just ram off the road, you may do something else, depending upon the intelligence that's behind the mind and the mind driving the senses. Go to a place where there's intelligence before just the passion driving the mind and senses.
That's a very good point, but I think the steps to achieve that higher intelligence
It comes with practice. It comes with practice. If your mode of nature is inclined towards that mode, it's very natural. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time. Now, the clarity of, depending upon the circumstance, if you're driving your car and a truck is heading it, you have to do something quickly. But there may be circumstances of life that aren't so drastic and immediate. And you need a strategy, but a friend of mine has this phrase, act in haste, lament in leisure. That's something his father taught me. So it's not that everything that you see that needs attention, there's an urgency addiction, you got to deal with it immediately. Now some things need to be dealt with immediately. We need our factor of discrimination to understand what's needed immediately and what things are not. And if there's not, how to best address it. That's where your better intelligence will make the better strategy than the impulse.
So if the intelligence says you fight for your right, then you will be fighting for your right.
But you do it, if your intelligence is right, you may want to consult with somebody else that's not in the middle of your autobiography and ask their opinion. Is this what you would advise for me, my well-wisher and wise person? Because you're my well-wisher, you're not interested in controlling my life, you're just a person whose intelligence I have regard for. So I'm consulting you. In confidence. Is this something I should do? Now, not every circumstance has that leisure where you can consult. But if that's an option, it's a good option to exercise. Depends on the circumstance. But there are steps that help act from a place of buddhi rather than, rajas. Just the raw mode of nature.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, towards the end, in one of the slides, you refer to Vaisheshika Prabhu quote that where our attention goes, the energy also flows, if I understand it correctly. And you were suggesting that don't feed the negative emotions as they tend to grow because of the flow of energy. So my question is, sometimes when I'm bombarded with some negative emotion, I tend to maybe try to dismiss it or be patient, not trying to put energy into it.
Okay.
But
Well, dismiss it is to tuck it under the rug, and that we don't do.
Yeah.
Don't. It's there. It's in the room, and it stays in the room. Don't run away from it. Don't hide from it. Don't pretend it's not there. It's in the room. It's with you. Now.
So I'm trying to be patient by not giving too much attention to that
Good.
negative thought.
Give attention to something that's constructive. Something that you know is wholesome and good and gives you energy and strength. Do that. Don't shut your intelligence down. Give your intelligence to something that's, is wise, it's wholesome, it's good, it's going to be. Not just, it may have nothing to do with addressing that problem and the emotion connected to the emotion or to the problem. But it's something that's a part of your life that is worthy of being nourished. That's Viktor Frankl. Each one of us, from not verbatim how he writes it, it's really well written, but there's a calling, a cause that's meant that it's your mission in life. Invest in that. Or maybe, a gift that Krishna has given you, or some gifts that Krishna, invest in some of that. I'll give an example. One couple, the first time I met them, I found out that the wife had just had a miscarriage. It was the first time as a sannyasi I had dealt with a woman who had just had a miscarriage. Really fresh. So something that I understood about grieving the loss is not tuck it under the rug, but allow nature to take course of grieving for that loss, the negative emotion. Don't ignore it but consider, so I suggested, consider to help you go through this grieving period, consider what gifts Krishna has given you. I don't need an answer, but you consider with your husband and invest some time and energy over this next while in nourishing and engaging in Krishna's service some of those gifts or one of those gifts that Krishna has given you. And it really helped them. They took it seriously, and for a while they did that and gave them energy. It helped them deal with the negative emotion and the grieving period that's natural for a mother that's just had a miscarriage. That's an example, a real life example. So that will help you in the patience department. And then some greater clarity and some higher kind of intelligence in addressing whatever that situation is that's the cause of the problem. It's life management, emotion management. It's an adult response rather than, a less mature person's response.
The
question I was about to ask before your explanation was Naraj, in not having to feed energy to that negative emotion, when you try to focus on the positive, there are some times where this negative emotion is so overpowering that it consumes the mental, one's mental aspect, and it's really difficult to focus on the positive aspect. So for me, the question that comes in that situation is, since this is something overpowering, is this something that really needs to be addressed, or do I need to be patient enough?
Well, when nobody likes to suffer, and if you can't find the brake pedal or apply it sufficiently, you're going to suffer. And that's the impetus to learn where the brake pedal is. Especially when you know better. If you just, and if you get beaten up by the negative emotion again, and you recognize, boy, I got beaten up by the negative emotion again, you stand up and you take a few more steps, like a child learning to walk. Doesn't mean you're a bad person or a failure or anything like that. You can just continue to grow, go towards light. Yes? No. Yes.
At times, when problems occur and they lead us to feeling embarrassed, and it's difficult for us to talk about it to someone, what can we do to still talk about it to someone?
Well, you know the answer. You have someone you can go to. And you go to that someone and share that, in confidence. Trustworthy person who you know is confidential, and you go to that person. And at least there should, it's important for us, I could say it's a need, we need to have such a person. Now, such a person doesn't need to be 10 people or 100 people. But, if there are additional persons who are trustworthy and you feel comfortable sharing, and the idea of sharing with that person is not it now becomes their responsibility to fix the problem or the emotion. But it's just, you're not carrying solo that situation and the emotion connected with it. And partly, I've experienced this, partly just by sharing that emotion, the person who shares the emotion feels some relief from the emotion. And sometimes a little light goes on as they're sharing the emotion, what to do about the situation that's causing the emotion. Whereas before they're sharing it was all bottled up and it was getting bigger than life. So, if Krishna permits, more than one such person in your life, a few persons in your life who you feel very close to and you can share things with openly. Not feel judged, not feel manipulated, just feel understood. Maybe some words of wisdom, or maybe some whatever. Did you consider this, this, and this, and this, and this? Kind of a, response. So then it's someone else's intelligence besides our own now strained, maybe compromised intelligence. Yeah?
Thank you, Maharaj, for a wonderful discourse. My question is that there is a bigger reality around you.
Yes, yes.
But then there is decisions or emotions or things inside of you tend to be changing that reality. So if I had a situation come at me and I reacted one way, a reality would be created, and if I reacted another way, another reality would be created. And sometimes it's kind of difficult for me to understand that as a soul, under the guidance of the super soul, are you creating that small reality in the next 10 minutes?
No.
Or somebody's guiding you?
No. Well, you're using the word reality with a small r, and I'm thinking of reality with a big R. Meaning, The big picture, which is how you introduced, is that tapestry, that embroidery that's not under microscope. And the reality with the small r is the reality with the small r. You know, whether you use the yellow thread or the green thread or the red thread or the blue thread, when it goes this way or that way. That'll, in the microscopic picture of the embroidery, it's going to look different. In that sense, you're creating a small r reality. But in the bigger picture, if it's not laid down correctly, Krishna will lay it down correctly.
So that's my question.
That's the bigger reality that you and I as devotees need to connect with. It's the trust in Krishna.
So is the tapestry already laid, or each one of us is laying something?
Is destiny predestined for us? Good Krishna answers that in Bhagavad Gita. The good fortune, ill fortune, we create. That's the tapestry or the embroidery with the small r. But that's not reality. The good fortune, ill fortune is a... So whether it goes this way or that way, you have a decision to make. And whether it goes this way or that way, what's important is not this way or that way. What's important is your consciousness of wishing that Krishna will be pleased by your choice. And if you've chosen not correctly, Krishna will bang you on the side of the head and put you on the right course. Or just accept the offering that you've given because you made that offering. Like Vidura's wife offered, you know, there's different Mahabharats, but she offered the banana peel and said the banana. And Krishna accepted the banana peel because she offered it with such love. Now, we're not qualified like her, we don't offer banana peels, but it's the consciousness behind, that's the bigger reality. And so yes, you're creating a circumstance by choices you make, yes. 13:22 Bhagavad Gita. Purusha prakriti stohi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. Look it up later. We create our destiny. But destiny is not reality. It's just the next events that are going to happen in our life and how it does impact other people besides ourselves, the interpersonal factor of our life. Our family and those close to us, etc., in particular, by the choices we make. But ultimately, if the more you concern yourself with pleasing Krishna, that will help you make the right choices and most positively benefit those around you, the tapestry of the lives of persons around you and your life. So it's favorable to Krishna. That's where the primary attention should go. Doesn't mean no attention goes to the secondary, but the primary precedes the secondary. The horse draws the cart, not the other way around. The horse says pleasing Krishna. And what goes in the cart, that can be different things. Yes.
So Maharaj, like when there is a situation, so the negative emotion, especially anger, is very quick. So
Yes.
So these keys, how to practice and when is the right time to practice? Because when the situation comes, mind doesn't think about these things and it just reacts.
Well, it doesn't. You don't have to. You do have freedom of choice, even when the mind goes to that place. Don't forget you have freedom of choice. Tiny free will. And you exercise. You know, physical therapy? You know anybody that has gone through physical therapy? You know a physical therapist? Yeah, it works. I have first-hand experience. you know, something happens and somebody has an accident or a sports injury or something, and just, you know, can't lift my arm, and they try. So 30 of those and 10 of those and 15 of those, and just consistently, they know which muscles can work, and eventually the use of the arm comes back. By practice, by somebody that knows what the muscle structure is. So as physical therapy worked through practice, this also worked through practice. You go to that pause place. Even some persons that get angry, they can go to the pause place. They don't have to just respond. That, you know, their stimulus response. You don't have to. You have freedom. You have freedom. Exercise it. Krishna will help you. And so what do? Well, like, at least go to the place where not, you know, the do not and then the do. You take the situation and the rock that hit you and it hurts, and you do what the people that understand this principle advise. Take the emotion to Krishna. You don't have to tuck it under the rug. Krishna, what? I'm feeling angry. Really? Tell me about it. Yeah, well, Krishna, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Just like your child. And what does mommy do? And you know, that's what they really want. Not just the thing that irritated them goes away. I mean, it doesn't take care of whatever it was that caused the child to come to you crying. You understand, because you're a mother. Yes?
You mentioned one of the line, in our existing culture we always try to fix the problem rather than accepting or tolerating it.
That's common. It's not the only, it's a very common behavior, a response.
So now it's like when you're trying to serve through spreading the message, there are many obstacles.
Of course, you have to have a strategy to meet the obstacles. It doesn't say turn your intelligence to the opposition and be a zombie. That's not the advice. Just, you know, go into the pause space. Here's the reality of the situation. I accept it. Krishna wants me, he's giving me an opportunity to get on the other side of this obstacle. Krishna, please give me the intelligence. What's the best? This is now strategizing, like his language over here. What's the best way? Now it can happen boom, 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 boom. It doesn't have to take 2 years. It can be very quick. But there's steps. The goal is Krishna is to be pleased, not just, you know, I get a little gold star on my report card for addressing this obstacle, and I get saluted at the Sunday feast. It's a relationship with Krishna, giving us an opportunity to serve him, and here's a little obstacle. It doesn't change my intention to please Krishna. And depends on what the obstacle is, how I'm going to, you know, what I'm going to do, if I'm going to do. Maybe Krishna wants me to go over there instead of over here, or whatever. Maybe another door, 5 other doors I'm going to open as soon as I look and see are there other doors. What does Krishna want? We just go to that space of pleasing Krishna, seeking intelligence from Krishna and strength to follow. So.
But sometimes our mind.
Sometimes our mind. Fill in the blank. Excuse me.
It shows us
some kind of fear or a negative emotion from past.
Yeah.
And then within short span of time, you get into this abyss.
Yeah.
And you find yourself kind of stuck there.
Yeah.
What could be your instantaneous thought to kind of get out of it?
When you're in the abyss, or when you see the negative ocean coming down the road?
When you know that you are getting sucked into it.
Ah. So, someone said recognition. When that little light that goes on that says, aha, here it comes. I'm very familiar with this one. This negative emotion has got this label on it. Whatever, different personalities have different tendencies towards certain negative emotions, and certain things trigger those tendencies. We all have our favorite ones. And Maya knows exactly what they are. And here it comes, and here it comes, and here it comes. She knows exactly. So, I mean, the language that I've been using is not exactly the language of Bhagavad Gita, but it's the essence of the message of, one way to say the essence of the message of Bhagavad Gita. My language is you go into this pause space. You have to go somewhere. You know, like, let's say, you know, somebody comes into the room with a machine gun. You're one of those people. Now, what are you going to do? There's a negative emotion for you. So it depends on the training and your nature. You can just like close your eyes, or you know. Anyway, so that may be not a good example. If there's training, you know what to do. If there's training, you know what to do. You don't run.
Right.
But there's things to do. So when you feel you're moving in the direction of a repeated type of negative emotion, don't hide the negative emotion, don't stand in the way of the negative emotion. Go into a pause space, step to the side, recognize the negative emotion, but don't be invested in it. Don't give further life and energy to it. You see it, it's there, and you're looking at it. So that's recognition or acknowledgement, detachment. And then in that detachment mode of goodness space, what's going on here? This is a negative, so there's the circumstance of the emotion. You're no longer identifying with it. You're trying to understand what has triggered it, and what is the right thing for me to do, both with regard to the emotion and the cause of the emotion. You may not have an immediate answer, but you're in this contemplative mode instead of reactionary mode. And the more that you can do like that, then you're ahead of the curve. You're not going to get the avalanche effect, where you just get knocked over. You become discombobulated for a while, you can't function. And then you need some recuperation space, and people need to keep away from you because you're like, you know, in that zone where don't get near this person, he needs some space. So you become more functional. And then you can take resources that can help you address both the emotion and the circumstance. You start going into the strategy phase, depending upon what it is. I mean, like a child, immediately the child goes to the mother. And she may not understand, you know, what happened. She may ask, the child may not even be able to articulate what happened. But so we also need someone to be able to go to and disclose. And that helps us like get a little bit detached from the negative emotion. And then that person, if they understand you well, they may be able to offer suggestions. Did you consider this? How are you feeling at the moment? What happened the last time? Have there been times when you were able to get on the other side of that emotion? Etc., etc., etc. Okay, the 7 o'clock bell is ringing. It's time for cookies. We'll take one last question since you raised your hand, but this is the last question.
When we feel negative and we want to discuss with someone, the fear we have that if we are discussing our personal problems, the other person may be judging us as a weaker part of our life.
Therefore, build close relationships with persons who aren't judgmental. And one of the best ways is don't be judgmental of others. Because that will invite relationships with persons that are not judgmental. Like attracts like, right? That's where it starts, inside. But the fear is there naturally. Brené Brown, Vulnerability, TED Talk. Go listen to it. You'll find an answer. A big part of her answer is your self-worth inside allows you to be put at risk. You're of course going to be discriminating about those with whom you share, but even if there's violation of that trust that you've invested, you're still safe because of self-worth. And then that pyramid, that was way up there. And in our Gita values discussion, you finished one, we're going to do 5 more. We'll be discussing that also. It all kind of like seamless, it all fits together. There's just different ways of speaking on a topic, but it's all within Bhagavad Gita. Even these kinds of things. Our trust goes to Krishna, and Krishna already knows. He's not going to judge us. Our primary relationship is with Krishna. So build a relationship with those that have a strong relationship with Krishna. And be of such a quality yourself that you have a strong relationship with Krishna, so you are also worthy of another's trust. And when they share something with you, you don't judge them. I mean, that's up there, but that's our opportunity and our challenge both. Are you happy with that answer?
So what I feel is that as we grow up, we tend to make less friends with whom we can share. We can spend some time, once a week, 10-15 minutes. Like as I was in college, with college friends I can talk anything. As I move to my corporate life, work life, and then I move places, I lose friends, and that makes us lonely when we cannot discuss. We can discuss happy things, but not sad things in our life.
Therefore, when you share things with people, you're vulnerable anyway. Even the people who are your smaller circle of friends, and you feel are worthy of your trust and friendship, you're still vulnerable. The answer to your question is in Brené, at least one answer, is self-worth. Even if you're judged. And it's not artificial, false ego kind of, there's an intrinsic worth for each of us as Krishna's parts and parcels. And so it rests upon your trust in Krishna. Now the factor of discrimination shouldn't be dropped. At the same time, you shouldn't be fearful of being judged because of your relationship with Krishna and your own intrinsic self-worth. Listen, it's very interesting. I think you'll like it. Okay, I'm going to close up. Okay? Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
His Holiness Prabhupada Maharaj ki
Jai. Let us express our gratitude to Prabhupada Maharaj. He is actually so kind to us. He is coming. He is actually the only sannyasi Prabhupada disciple who visits us. And he is the one who came in the beginning of our starting of apprenticeship.
We're paying him off.
So, Maharaj. So we all request Maharaj to please keep coming and giving the association. Yes. And let us express our gratitude to Maharaj while all this chanting. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! His Holiness Prabhupada Maharaj ki Jai!
What's the other one?
Can you announce?